Toyota Supra with the manual. And oh man, I love this thing with a manual. It's what it always needed, and it is so good. It's not just a manual, but it's a really good manual, and it's really well executed. And I really enjoyed it in my first review of the Supra that I already covered a few months back, but that I didn't have a chance to actually drive it on normal public roads, and I only had, just a few minutes to drive it, so I didn't have a ton of time. And so thankfully I've been able to live with one of these things for a week now, and I'm happy to report that it is even better than it was in its first impression, in my opinion. So I love the way they set up the gearing here in the manual. That is the number one thing, is it's still got nice short gears. The final drive ratio is shorter, so I mean it feels basically almost as punchy as the automatic, which is rare. A lot of times going from auto to manual, a lot of the other vehicles feel slower, not as exciting, not as engaging, and this is just the complete opposite. It's so much fun. And we're coming up to some corners here that I always take in my reviews, and they added a little bit of tar and chips here, so not the ideal surface, but it still grips so good on these Michelin Pilot Super Sports they're still using here on the Supra. It still grips so well, and I'm also pretty impressed. So, they said for 2023 for all Supras, they've tweaked the steering and the suspension tuning and the shock absorber tuning. And so what they say it provides is better roll balance and better comfort. And before I even kind of did my research again on this vehicle before I did this video, in the early part of this week, I even just remember thinking like, wow, this actually feels a little more comfortable than I remember the Supra being typically. I think they really did improve the comfort. Now, it still is a, sporty setup with, it's a sports car. It's going to feel a little bit on the stiff side, but honestly, it feels, really nice and comfortable, especially when you're not in the sport mode. You can adjust those dampers to make them a little bit stiffer, but yeah, it just feels more comfortable. It also, now you can't hide the short wheelbase. It still likes to step out on you, and you actually saw it just actually stepped out on me on the 1-2 shift there whenever I was accelerating at the very beginning. They also said they added an anti-roll system, a new basically a stability control system, but it's in addition to regular stability control to help with avoiding basically snap oversteer kind of incidents, which were known to happen a little bit here in this Supra. So I think that it made the Supra a little more manageable. I've just noticed that it makes for a really good driving experience. And I just had the brand new Nissan Z like 2 weeks ago, and so it's really great because I'm basically doing a back-to-back comparison between these two, and it's just the first mile I drove here in the Supra, I was like, yes, like this is what I'm looking for from a sports car. It's tight, it's got super quick steering, much quicker steering than the Z. Everything, the shifter's tighter. Everything about this car, the body control, everything just feels so much tighter, and that's what you want in a sports car. The Z is a better Grand Tourer, and I will give it that, but when you're talking about actual sports cars, this is just head and shoulders above the Z still, in my opinion, and I'll talk more about the comparisons with the Z later in the video. But before I explain more, I first want to give a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Carmigo. Carmigo is a car marketplace that allows you to sell your car quickly and easily, getting you multiple offers in just one business day from Carmigo's nationwide network of dealerships. All you have to do is take a few pictures, set a minimum price, and then watch those offers come in. It takes less than 15 minutes to list your car, and it's always free. You only have to sell if an offer meets or beats your minimum price. Plus, they handle all the annoying paperwork, loan payoffs, and other details that make selling your car a headache usually. When I first heard about Carmigo, I immediately thought it was a great idea. You get exactly what you want for your car without any of the hassle or haggling. So avoid the long process of getting your car appraised at multiple dealerships or having to deal with the annoying back and forth of Facebook Marketplace messages, and get your car sold in a day with Carmigo. If your car sells, you normally just pay a flat $350 sell fee, but for Matt Moran Motoring viewers, if you use the link in the description, you'll only pay $300 instead. So if you're ready to sell your car, click the link now and get started. Other things I learned here in my week with the manual Supra here. One thing is, in my initial review, I was worried about the manual shifter placement and how my elbow was kind of sinking into the cup holders here. And now I haven't, lived with this vehicle for months on end. I only spent a week with it, and it's not like I drove it hundreds of miles or anything. But what I can say is that so far I haven't noticed, you know, any kind of lack of armrest here. And even though my elbow kind of rests in this area, I don't find myself being like, oh man, I really hate having cup holders right where my elbows are at. It hasn't bothered me just yet. I know it's a minor thing, but you know, just one little livability thing I wanted to mention here. Do another acceleration just because why not? It's really awesome. But so that is one thing. Every once in a while, I still will grind second. And I've been driving a manual transmission for like 16 years. I know how to drive a manual transmission. But it's just that this vehicle doesn't love having rush shifts. So I mean, if you're going to do drag racing in your Supra, stick with the automatic. Obviously, that's the faster choice anyway. But you know, I would say that, you know, don't do any kind of power shifting here in the Supra because you're going to be grinding second every once in a while. I'm not sure, you know, what the problem is there as far as why, but that happened to me on the launch event and this week, or if I'm rushing a 1-2 shift, every once in a while it'll do it. It didn't do it on my first acceleration there, so it's not consistently doing it, but it is something that, you know, you really have to just hit it just right to not grind second. And so it's a little trickier to rush a shift. Whenever you're just taking it easy, you're just enjoying the manual and you're not, you know, trying to race around at maximum velocity, you know, it still is a very nice manual. And I love the way this shifter feels. I like that they went with a slightly longer throw, and I just like that it's a nice small shifter. It just feels really good, and I like that it's weightier than the Z shifter, for example, too. It falls right to hand. It's in a perfect placement. The clutch is also, you know, just heavy enough to feel substantial, and gives you better feedback than the Z clutch, for example. But it just feels really good. And but it's also not, you know, too laborsome to, you know, have to push it in. It's not a super heavy clutch. So they really just did the manual very well. And aside from, again, maybe a little bit of a grinding issue there, which could even be resolved with fluids changing or something like that. But, you know, some type of, you know, minor change there to avoid the grinding, and this would be a perfect manual setup in my opinion. It's just really, really well done. And even with the manual, the Supra continues to feel punchier than 382 horsepower. It's still very much an underrated engine, I think, and it is just, it is so strong. I love these things to death. I've previously said, you know, if my, you know, personal note, if my Mustang Bullet did not exist, I would probably own a Supra because I love these things that much. And now I would say that I certainly would own it with the manual here. I think the manual is definitely the way to go. That's the better pick of the two. The automatic is fantastic, and if you don't mind automatics, it's a really well done, you know, ZF8 speed, really snappy, you know, manual shifts in that automatic. But here for the manual, it is just so enjoyable to drive. And oh man, yeah, every time I hop in this vehicle this week, I just absolutely loved it. Always put a smile on my face. It was so gratifying. There's manuals that are fun to drive, but they're not a gratifying manual. Like, this is a gratifying manual. It's a really road through the gears. The auto rev matching works great, but see, it still wants to play around with me. I mean, again, you're hearing the pebbles and stuff. This road is a little bit on the rougher side in addition to, you know, having the tar and chip stuff. But you know, even whenever the roads are paved pretty well, this thing likes to step out on you, and that hasn't changed with the manual here. And I'm glad that, you know, it still has short enough gearing to really make it feel punchy enough that you can really just kick the back end out with just a little stab of your right foot. It really is just so much fun. Other things here, though, to talk about here with the manual Supra. First off, fuel economy. I can mention that here very briefly because, you know, these do get about 3 to 4 mpg less than the automatic. Again, not a huge deal if you're buying a sports car, but I just wanted to mention here that over my driving, I've been getting 18.5 mpg. These are rated at 19 mpg in the city, 27 on the highway, and 21 combined. And so I typically get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating anyway, so to be getting basically the city rating, considering how much I was getting on this vehicle, is honestly very impressive. So I think this is actually overperforming what I was expecting fuel economy wise. Also, I'm now on a nice smooth road, so for anyone worried about road noise concerns, as you can see, whenever the road is nice and smooth, it's nice and quiet in here and very refined, a little bit more refined than the Z, I would say, as well. There's no gear whine like you get in the Z, for example. So yeah, just a really nice thing to cruise around in, even whenever you're not flying around on a back road. But one thing that I'm not in love with is that you do get less crackles and pops, and it's almost no crackles and pops compared to what you used to get. It's like, it's trying to squirm on me. But yeah, I'm in sport mode and no crackles, and that's the thing is, you know, I was getting a little bit of it on the launch event, but not, you know, very much. And now I've really struggled to get any kind of that fun stuff here this week. And you know, it's still, this motor and this exhaust still sounds much better than the Z, at least to my ears. So I think it definitely has an advantage over the Z in the, you know, audio department. But I do miss some of those crackles and pops from the automatic. The automatic Supra is just crackling and popping constantly, especially in the lower gears when you know, stab the gas and then let off. Like if I was in the automatic, that would have been like blah, 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 the whole way down, and then this, it's nothing. I'm not sure why they got rid of that. I know some other vehicles going from automatic to manual, you do lose out on some of that as well. I wish they would have tried to tune that back in or something. I don't know, but regardless, it's just one fun little thing about the Supra that I do miss here in the manuals. Now, I have to say that the manual experience, I think, makes up for it. And if I was, you know, up against the decision of whether to go for a manual or automatic Supra, I would probably pick the manual. I'm very partial to manuals, I will admit. Every single car I've ever bought, honestly, has been a manual. But you know, the automatic is also very, very good, so it's tempting because I do really love those crackles and pops. But I think, you know, here with the manual, it makes for just a more fun experience, and so I think that is what I would do, is, you know, definitely go for the manual. And especially manuals, you know, they're not going to be around very long, and you know, we got to enjoy them while they're offered, while they last, and reward the manufacturers for offering them. And you know, Toyota having the guts to sell this, considering, you know, they might not sell a ton of them, and I'm really glad that they've decided to offer the manual here for the Supra. And yeah, it's just a very fun experience. The last thing I want to mention, I didn't have a chance to take it on the highway in my first drive, so I'm going to take it on the highway here and briefly just see how it does whenever it's just cruising in 6th, since you don't have the cruiser gears of the 8-speed automatic you had in the automatic Supra. Alright, so 6th gear out on the highway here doing 65 miles per hour. It's a really nice cruiser still. What I love, though, is that even just rolling into the gas at 65 slowly, I mean, you immediately, that turbo surge just kicks right in, and you're immediately at 70 miles an hour, just like that. It really is nice and punchy, and I really like that about it. And even just cruising here at, you know, like 65 miles per hour, I'm doing like maybe 2,300 RPMs. Very quiet, even in sport mode with the louder, you know, exhaust setting. Still totally fine in here. So still really great highway cruiser. You know, it isn't any rougher than the automatic in my opinion, and you know, you still have great passing power in 6th, so you don't even need to downshift really if you don't want to. And yeah, just a really nice manual out here on the highway as well. I also think here in the manual Supra, you get a little bit more of the turbo sounds. I've been hearing the turbo whistling a little bit. I think because, you know, I didn't really drive the automatic Supra in manual mode all the time, and so holding those gears really helps you to, you know, hear that turbo whenever you let off the gas. And it's just a fun little extra touch, even though you are missing out on, you know, most of the crackles and pops here. But anyway, the last thing to mention though is the pricing. So, you know, Supras in general have gone up a little bit in their price, you know, little by little over the years, like, you know, most other vehicles. And so these start with the manual at $53,595. This one, as tested with the Stratosphere blue color, which is such a gorgeous looking color in my opinion. I really love this. It's like a bluish purple. It just looks so good. And anyway, so that's $425 extra. And so this one's grand total comes out to about $58,000. But the standard 3.0 comes with more features than it used to, now getting standard heated seats and getting the same size screen as the premiums. The 3.0 upgrades the screen to a touchscreen that also adds wireless Apple CarPlay, but notably still no Android Auto, wireless or otherwise. It also takes you from a 10-speaker stereo to a JBL 12-speaker setup and adds a head-up display, wireless charging pad, and leather-trimmed seats instead of the leather and Alcantara combo that's standard. If you can live without those things, the regular 3.0 gets all the same performance hardware. So yes, it is a few $1,000s more expensive than the Z. If you're looking for, you know, a good all-around vehicle that's also a comfortable daily driver, I could see the Z maybe having a little bit more appeal, as long as you're okay with, you know, the lesser refinement, the less nice interior, the lack of customization with no drive modes, no adaptive suspension, no exhaust settings. You know, this has all that stuff, and the Z does not have any of that stuff. So the Z is more old school if that's what you're going for, or you're just interested in saving a few $1,000s. No problem going for the Z. I think the Z is a great car, and you know, I don't have anything against the Z, and I'm really glad that it exists. But if you're someone who, you know, has a few extra $1,000s to spend, I think this is worth a few $1,000s extra. I mean, it's really not much. I mean, the Z with the comparably equipped package, you you know, those are going to be $51,000 anyway. So you're already, you know, this being 53.5 or even 57, you're only a few $1,000s away there. And so depending on how big of a deal that is for you will depend on, you know, whether or not this still seems like a good value compared to the Z. I think it's still a good value compared to the Z, and you know, I certainly think I would spend the few $1,000s extra for this over the Z, just because again, everything feels tighter, sharper, more sports car like in every single way. So yeah, I'm just a big fan of the Supra still, and I'm so glad it now offers the manual. It just makes it even better and an even more engaging experience than it already was. Even though the Z is pretty tail happy, this thing is certainly, I think, even a little more tail happy, and just so much fun to drive. It's so good to drive too. So anyway, that's about all of my thoughts here on my week with the 2023 Supra. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with the manual Supra to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.